Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast, powered by Self-Recoding, world-class consulting and coaching services that you can access at selfrecoding.com. Self-Recoding is a unique blend of neuro-healing modalities that will empower you to reach your full potential. Join thousands of others who have experienced rapid results in their journey of personal growth. Now enjoy our show where we bring you tools for a powerful mind with your hosts, Kathi and Daisy.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution, the podcast that gives you tools for a powerful mind. I'm Kathi Tate, your host from Down Under. With me, as always, your host from America, Miss Daisy Pap. Hi, Daisy.
Hi, my dear friend. So good to see you. Good to get recording again. A new episode in season 8. And I'm looking forward what's up your sleeves tonight. My time. I know you're in the future and for you it's morning, but that's fine.
Well, leading on from our last few episodes, we've been talking about feminine and masculine parts of us, the meeting of the minds, and of course the old helper syndrome. And I thought that we should do an episode on what you mentioned, especially last week, something called first person singular. Now, you've spoken about this over the episodes here and there, and we haven't actually done a specific episode on it. I thought it was high time because this is a very powerful tool to have in the toolkit, especially when it comes to communication and relationships. Would you agree, Daisy?
Yes, I totally wholeheartedly agree. And thank you for picking yet another good episode title and especially topic, because I think that it is high time to speak about how we can improve communications, because humanity is in a very challenging time. The era is really very new, of course, to all of us, because we haven't lived in the future like you do, of course, down under. And everything is about relationships. My relationship with my computer, my relationship with you, my relationship with the neighbors, my relationship with my work, my relationship with my friends, my family, my absolute loved ones. And when we start communicating in healthier ways and we learn that it's not magic, it's not, oh, we're born and then some people are just really the lottery winner of knowing how to communicate in healthy ways, that then they never have really issues or arguments. That's not the case. It's like a recipe. When you want to cook something delicious, then you follow a specific recipe, or you put some ingredients in there thoughtfully. And the same is when it comes to communication, and especially communication that's peace-bringing and not upsetting. It can still upset others, but when you know these tools, then you will be able to, I like to say, stop the wind in the sail so the sailboat stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I spoke about briefly, I think it was last episode as well, I'm keen to help or keen to inspire the world to become less divisive. I think there are so many things out there that have been designed on purpose to divide us and make us forget how similar we really are. And so I think that learning these communication skills will also do that. Will also remind us how similar we are and how we can find common ground more often than maybe we even think we can.
Well, I think communication, besides our self-talk, because we have 70,000 thoughts a day, every one of us, and I don't know when it really becomes that number, most likely in the adulthood. I'm not sure how neuroscientists were able to check that on babies who may have less thoughts. And when we communicate with humans, although maybe others want the division and maybe also others want to divide us, and maybe we want to be divided from others because we want to stand out, we want to be better. Nevertheless, when we learn these skills, we can choose a communication that is much healthier. There it goes back to first person singular. Actually, it's a term from grammar where it describes the first person singular. That is a grammar term. And please, dear listeners, go up and research yourself. It is when I speak from my point of view, This is how I feel. This is how I see it. This is what I think. This is what I'd like. This is what I don't like. I also call these thoughts, when I express them, the non-arguables, because try to argue with me when I say, I like this item, whatever item I might have in my hand. I have the right to like it, and you have the right to agree or disagree, to like it or find it just absolutely inappropriate. That's fine. But you cannot argue that I find it pretty, or I find it good, or I find it helpful. How can you possibly argue that? You may be able to argue that when you go then to the level of insults. Well, Daisy, you're stupid liking that. Okay, fine. Tell me more about it. But I still think it's likable. Now, you cannot really argue that. Sooner or later, you will really run into a dead end. And sooner or later, you will turn around or maybe get stuck there. When humans argue usually, or when humans have discussions, or when I look at couples, this is what you said. Really? Can you prove it? The past is over. You can only reconstruct your memory, or reconstruct it in your head, what you think and what you feel and what you remember. It's not like you are having a surveillance camera that's taking all the details. So let's say I say, Kathi, but you said that we're going to record ABC today. You would come back at me and say, no, I didn't say that. I never said that. And then I say, yes, that's what you said. And open is the argument. Now, when I say, oh, Kathi, if I heard you correctly, you see, I speak me language, first person singular. If I remember correctly, this is what I remember. I heard you say that we're going to record ABC. Now, I also give you, therefore, the space to say, this is not what I remember. I remember saying we are recording first person singular tonight. And I can say, then I can come back at you and say, okay, well, I remember differently. Big deal. So when we take out that, but this is what you said, this is what she said. Yes, you did say that. You never, you always, when we remove that and rather connect with how it feels to us. For example, you look at me while we're recording, and I can feel however I feel about you looking at me and the way you look at me. And I can say, well, the way you look at me makes me really concerned, as if I'm doing something wrong or concerning to you. Now, I'm not hurting you, I'm not offending you, and I'm not attacking you. Can you see?
Yes, for sure. It's a term, a soft way of putting things so that it's open to input from both sides without it being abrasive at all. It feels a very nice way to be spoken to, I have to say. I can't say I know a lot of people who speak in this way just from their own background, learning, conditioning, and it's been very refreshing, I would say, over the last few years, knowing you and learning to speak in such a way that is not abrasive. And I don't think that we've ever had an argument, have we, Daisy?
I do not recall that we had an argument. We had discussions. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
You see, I say it my point of view. I describe to you my point of view. And then therefore, I'm not saying, yeah, well, you're stupid because you don't even remember that we argued about the red pencil behind your back on the shelf hanging down. I'm just making this up, of course. But you see, it's not even starting. I'm not even sure if it is less abrasive. I think it is just a different standard. And I understand that everyone grew up in a different way and subjectively experienced life so far their own way. That's totally okay. But now we can choose that we are changing our communication style. We can choose to self-develop. We can choose to educate ourselves. We can choose to make tiny adjustments. It doesn't change our personality. What it does, though, it changes the results.
Yeah, I think it really does. And how do we show people how to do this in their real life? Because I think that it's great to get tips, and then it's another thing entirely when you're in the heat of the moment to use them. So what can we inspire the audience with around that?
Well, slow down. That's number one. Slow down and check in with yourself. What are you feeling? How do you see it? What is it that you're perceiving? How does it make you think? What is it that really bothers you? If there's anything bothering you. So when we don't check in with ourselves, then we tend to react. That's like being on autopilot. These are the old programs that we just used and utilized so often that we don't even think about it. It's like when you're driving a car with a stick shift, you know how the clutch works. You don't really think about it after you learn driving a stick shift car. Then you understand the clutch has a function and you understand that your left foot is doing whatever it's doing to not kill the engine or to make it run smoothly. Now we do that on autopilot. We don't really think about it anymore. And when it comes to communication, most people are on autopilot as well. For example, someone gives you a compliment and you say, no, it's nothing. You didn't even hear what the other said and you're already denying, diminishing what they said. So learning how to accept compliments is also a big part in communication. But let's go back to first person singular. I really like how you decorated the shelf behind you with your very first podcast microphone on it. You see, I really like it. Now you could ask, so what is it that you like about it? Well, I think it is very thoughtfully done and it makes me feel that you care for our podcast. So now I share it with you, first person singular, what's going on within me. Now, it requires some practice. And of course, the best is when you have someone to practice with who also wants to change their communication style in this particular regard. If you don't have anyone to practice with, I do believe that our podcast, and I mean that humbly, is a great resource where you can hear how Kathi and I converse. This is not how I see it. I think it is important. This is what I recall. If I heard you correctly, if I understand you correctly, this is all along these lines of first person singular. Now, when you're already upset, it will be more challenging to use it. First, we want to calm down, take a breather, take a step back, slow down. And I go back to a very helpful tool and skill, which is the 60-second fake smile. A client of mine was in a very shocking situation last week. And it was shocking to the family and it was shocking to himself. And he was sitting there and what he did some tapping, meridian tapping or EFT, or in the past we would call it TFT, thought field therapy, or emotional freedom techniques. And he was utilizing that and he was observed by other people and they thought, what is he doing? And then he did the 60-second fake smile. And people started smiling at him because it really looks funny. And I understand it looks funny. He didn't do it to fake smile at anyone out of offense. He did it to calm himself. And it shows me that it is just absolutely stunning how fast these little tiny adjustments and tools help almost instantaneously. I mean, 60 seconds is, I understand sometimes it really feels as if it was a long time, but it's better spending time fake smiling for 60 seconds than being angry and exploding. Wouldn't you agree?
So there's another tip that you had, I remember, from one of our early podcasts about the tongue and being angry too.
Oh, yes, very well. I would have not thought about that. Yes, it is very weird. It's also a very weird feeling. Dear listeners, wherever you are right now, most likely you're listening to our podcast and not speaking. So I'd like to inspire and invite you to just relax your tongue and allow it to rest in the bottom of your mouth. It might feel unusual in the very beginning. And when you practice that, it will lower your anger. Why? Because you cannot possibly be angry and relax your tongue at the same time. That's neuroscience. You can go and have a look at Dawson Church. He wrote a fantastic book, The Genie in Your Genes. He's writing a lot about the tapping modalities. He did lots of research, extensive research, and I admire his work.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that the body has little idiosyncrasies like that. Are there any more that are easy and simple that you can think of?
At this very moment, nothing comes to my mind. I'm sure that I will fill you in when it comes to my mind. You see what I did? I again used first person singular. Yeah. When I stay with me, not in a selfish way, not in an egocentric way, like I'm the center of the universe. No, my body is my sensory system. And when we stop numbing it and become more sensible again, then we can become more sensitive, and it becomes easier and faster to check in with self. And when I then learn to say what I mean and mean what I say, and use on top of that first person singular, why would you ever be totally upset with me? And if so, for how long, when I'm not accusing you? When I simply share in a calm manner that this is not what I remember. I see it differently. I agree with you to disagree. When I stay with me, for how long can you be absolute mad at me? Good luck with that. One dear friend of mine, we were very close. We're still close, but we were very close. I'm not sharing when. And my friend was so upset, saying, Daisy, when I want to argue or I feel argumentative, you become even slower and softer spoken and really lower volume. And it drives me nuts. So I was not a good companion to argue with. And I think that's a great compliment.
Yes, that's funny because I feel like, and we've done episodes on this too, that there are definitely people out there predisposed to being drama queens.
Yes.
And making what I would call a mountain out of a molehill, which is meaning to exaggerate things. And if you have not heard those episodes, please do go and have a listen because they are full of treasures. And I think that they speak to a lot of things that we all have in common because we all have been conditioned in certain ways. And it isn't easy to undo the conditioning, but practice does make perfect. And I think that when two people are trying it together, it is even easier. Because you have that dedication to wanting to improve yourself and you have that other person that you can test it on and try and get it right. And the more that you're able to practice something, I believe the better that you can get at it. And I know that I've certainly improved my communication over the years having you to talk to because you are such a good example of how to do this. You've been doing it for so very long that it does become easy to do it with you. It's not always easy to do it out there in the great big wide world, but I think if we can start somewhere, it's certainly very helpful. So do encourage someone, ask someone in your family if they'd like to do it with you, if they'd like to improve their communication skills and practice together.
Yes. And when you don't have anyone to practice with, then you can consider all the others great teachers.
Yeah, for sure.
So it depends again on my mindset and on my attitude. Do I now feel stuck because, I don't have anyone practicing with? Or I take the initiative and practice by myself. And back to what I heard you say, if I heard you correctly, and please correct me if I misheard you, that practice makes perfect. I disagree.
That's one of those cliches that I sometimes fling out without thinking too much about them. Not so much perfect, but practice certainly makes us better at things.
Exactly.
And better on our feet, make us more flexible, make it easier to recover, make it easier to figure it out on the spot in a shorter time, or it does for me. That's what I meant by that.
Yes, because perfectionism is a setback. Perfectionism is very painful and it's very exhausting. I think bettering ourselves, how do you say it? I very much like that. That feels comfy. That feels good to me. And it feels achievable to me. Now, perfectionism is highway to disappointment, so I think. And who can measure it's perfect? No, it's the best it can be. It's the best I was capable of doing. When I slip, and I can slip too when something really unexpected happens, and sometimes I giggle about my own expressions that I have because they come then from all sorts of languages that I speak, and then I find it humorous. Now, let's be calmer and friendlier and softer with ourselves. It starts within. And when I also check in with myself, how do I feel? How do I think? What is it that I want? When I'm aware of these, then my communication can only get better. Why? Because then I will be able to verbalize at least what's going on within me. Maybe it also requires some practice. Something came to my mind because you asked if there are other tricks that our body knows, relax your tongue or fake smile. I referred to the muscle relaxation. That is a very interesting exercise as well that we can do. And it just crossed my mind many years ago. I published a book, Software Update for Your Mind. It's a tiny, cute little book where you can find some tools that are helpful for, well, these stressful situations, or when somebody appears to be upsetting, because actually, is it really them upsetting you, or is it your body responding with being upset at something because you don't like it, you cannot change it? Maybe you're frustrated because you're out of control. Maybe you feel controlled by others. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by others, or you feel like they're dictating what you're supposed to do, or they know everything better. It's a good idea, I think, to have a look inside.
So what was the tip? Sorry?
What I was referring to is progressive muscle relaxation. That's also helpful.
And so how does that go, Daisy?
Well, so it's like you start with one part of your body. For example, you start with your right hand and you make a fist as strongly as you can, and then you relax it. And then you take the other hand and you make a fist very strongly, and then you relax it. It's also very soothing to the body because oftentimes we don't even know how tense we are. I went to the chiropractor the other day because I did something I was not very happy about, and I felt it in my neck. So I thought, okay, here I come. He's a wonderful chiropractor, Dr. Feltz, the guy here in the area where I live, and I can only highly recommend him. And he has just these magic fingers, and he knows, he senses something. Actually, what I learned, because I said, wow, you must have been really born with this talent. He says, no, it's all training, very humbly. And I said, oh, really? How do they train that? And he said that there was a sheet of paper and they put a whisker under it, and he had to find it with the finger. And when he was able to find it, then they increased the paper sheets to 2. And after that, they increased it to 3. So you see how we are trainable. We can be so sensitive. Now, what actually Dr. Feltz said, I think is great when we become more and more sensitive within ourselves. And when we then expand maybe our vocabulary, well, maybe it's a good idea that you make yourself a list of words, how you feel. Discover how you feel oftentimes. Go to thesaurus and go online and find synonyms for the word that you think you feel. That will enable you to expand your vocabulary so that you will be able to more precisely say what you mean and mean what you say. And when you then express that to whoever you speak to, I find this is hurtful to me. Now, there's a big difference if I say to you, this feels hurtful to me, or I say to you, this feels unfair. Why? Because unfair is already a judgment, and unfair is not, it's too abstract. So it really goes down to how you feel. It's not about what you think. It's more about to learn how to describe what you feel. I can still think that some things are unfair, and there's certainly a lot that's unfair in this world. But when it comes to conversations, especially in relationships, I would really go away. I'd take a distance from these words. It's unfair. This is ugly. This is useless. Yeah, so these judgmental expressions.
So try and stick to the actual feelings that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the advice about the thesaurus, because I think that being able to express ourselves is one of the most important skills that can get us through life. And so the better that we can articulate how we're feeling, the better for us, I believe. And one of the great ways to do that is to go and learn more about the words that we use and words that are similar but different. And English is the first to say a crazy language. There can be a dozen words that mean almost the same thing. And so it can be a little bit finicky, especially if it's not your first language. But I imagine that every language has some form of thesaurus for your own first spoken language. So get out there and delve into it and do that. Go and learn more about how to express yourself, because it will benefit you in the long run.
I'd also say that I don't give advice. If I heard you correctly, that you mentioned that this is great advice. Maybe you give advice. I don't. I can share what works for me and I can give suggestions. I don't advise.
I think we can probably debate the meaning of the word advise in another episode, Daisy.
Yes, maybe we can. I just want to be clear, because to me it is important that I say what I mean. And I like to inspire others to also be more precise. And this is also another very good point that you just bring up, that one word can mean something very different to you than it means to me. So also it's a good idea to discuss with the people that you're speaking with frequently, or that you're debating or you're having a life with, that, okay, what is your definition of? Because so often it means something completely else than it would mean to me.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and definitely where I wanted to hit with the episode that we just did about the meeting of the minds, because unless you are on the same page when you're talking about what something means to both of you, then you're having completely different conversations.
And there you go. You can go places you have not visited before.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to give one more bonus here. When we speak first person singular, instead of saying what you don't want, check in with yourself. What is it that you do want? Because it leads you much faster to get what you want. Because when I say, I don't want this dog, I don't want this dog, I don't want this dog, how do you know then if I want another dog, a smaller dog, a grayer dog, a browner dog, a whiter dog, or maybe an older dog, or a younger dog, or maybe I want a stuffed dog? How do you know? Maybe I'm talking about a hot dog. Nah, that surprised you, didn't it? Because I'm speaking about all these four-legged animals, and now I'm speaking about a hot dog. So it is important to say what I want. And most people have challenges because we weren't taught to express freely what we want. Oftentimes people feel that they're not deserving. Oftentimes they feel embarrassed to say what they want. But if you don't say what you want, who else will? Do you want someone else to tell you what you shall want, and you ignore what you really, truly, deeply long for? First person singular. Instead of saying, Joe, but you didn't give me the chocolate, I can say, Joe, I'd also would like to have a piece of chocolate. How can we make this happen? Would you share some chocolate with me? I so long for a piece of chocolate. It would really feel me that I'm cared for, and it would really make me feel that you share with me because I matter to you. I share with him, with Joe, how it makes me feel. But I leave it up on him. He can either give me that piece of chocolate that I long for and gift me the connected feelings that I just described, that then I will feel cared for. And I feel that you care about me. Or you just don't share the chocolate with me. Fine. Then I care for me. When we become more independent and look at all these place fillers and feeling fillers and become more self-serving, okay, it's hard to hug myself. It's sometimes not easy to scratch my back exactly where I need it. A masseuse can do it much better than I can, or to massage my back or my feet. But I can still share what I need. I can share what I want. And that all goes back to first person singular. When I tell you, but Kathi, you never wink at me. Now I feel saddened and I'm sure that you don't like me. You think, wow, what a puzzle. I'm puzzled by this puzzle. But when I say to you, well, if once in your life, whenever you feel like winking at me, that really would make my day. She's winking at me, of course. But you see, it's so easy to slip here. I think we have it the other way around in many aspects of life. We think that it's our destiny and maybe it is our obligation to fix others, instead to have a look and please ourselves by learning first person singular, by learning how to self-regulate, by learning how can we relax, by learning how we can handle anger and find a catalyst that's healthy for me and the world.
Yeah. This has been a eye-opening episode, I think, and I hope it will inspire our listeners to give this a go for themselves and to learn more about it and to put it into practice, because it is a great tool that we should all have in our toolkits, I think, to have better communication skills. And better communication can only lead to better understanding and more of us getting along, which is what I'd like to see.
Me too. I'm with you on this. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, that's it from us today. Another amazing episode. A big shout out to our major sponsor, Self-Recoding. If you feel like today has helped you, imagine what you could achieve with a whole session with Daisy. So reach out, selfrecoding.com. We thank them for their support as always. That's it from us this week. We'll be talking to you again real soon. We are Bald and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening in to the Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our show with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place for you, for us, for future generations. When you need consulting or coaching, visit selfrecoding.com. Also, please remember to rate us 5 stars and leave a review and support us at baldandblonde.live. Talk to you soon.